we are in a very toxic world. 95% of cancers are environmental. They're not all about genetics. They're about the stuff you put in your food, the chemicals you put on your skin. They're about environmental toxicity and damage to your DNA. I lost a dog to glyphosate. We can prevent a huge amount of it. Dog passed away at 7 and 8 and 9 years old. What I love is my 15-year-olds coming in and my 16-year-olds coming in, the real golden oldies that I've known all their lives, and we've got them through all sorts of diseases. And I think the internet makes things very different. It's a dangerous tool because everybody piles in with all sorts of bits of information and there's huge amounts of junk. One of the things I teach a lot of my clients to do is to timeline. Your vet doesn't have the time. Keep a timeline and you draw a line, which is birth and now. And in between every event that happens to your dog. And the one thing we need to do is intervene before cancers and autoimmune disease hits. You can't prevent all of it, but here's a biggie but.
Welcome to the DAFY podcast, the place where you will get expert-led and science-backed advice on dog health and nutrition. No more confusion and no more conflicting opinions. Just clear guidance to help you make informed decisions for your pup. Because when it comes to our dogs, they deserve the very best care. And we, as dog parents, deserve confidence in the choices we make for them. Let's meet an expert. Sue, welcome to the DAFY podcast. It's so great to have you on today.
Thanks, it's fantastic to be here.
So first of all, I just wanted to say I loved meeting you at the Natural Dog Expo back in April. And yeah, when I heard you talk, I was like, I need to go and talk to her because I think you will be an amazing guest to the DAFY podcast. So how I wanted to start it, Sue, is can you tell the audience a little bit about your background first?
Yeah, I'm a long in the tooth vet. So I've been a vet over 40 years and in clinical practice the whole time, apart from when I had my children. So I had a couple of years out there, but pretty much the whole time I've been in practice. And about 30 odd years ago, I decided that there were other ways to do medicine as well as straightforward medicine. So although I am a vet 100% first and foremost, I still have all the time, all throughout my entire career, been searching for what are the best ways to treat individual animals, the safest ways to treat them, the least invasive, the least deleterious in the long term. Because what I see a lot of is people fixing what happens to a dog or cat or a horse, whatever, today, and we don't worry then about the consequences of what that means for tomorrow. And so my quest throughout my entire career has been looking for, hang on a minute, we've got to look at tomorrow as well as today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I studied homeopathy, nutrition, acupuncture, laser therapy, all sorts of different modalities. My passion is homeopathy. I fell in love with it 30 odd years ago and can never.
What made you fall in love with homeopathy?
It answered so many things that ordinary medicine didn't answer. And one of the most important ones, which was probably the beginning of when I got into it in the first place, was when you're standing in a consult room with clients and they're telling you all sorts of really interesting stuff. So that might be something like, my dog is sick at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and the sick is green. And when the dog's been sick, it then always wants a drink of really cold water. As a vet, ordinary vet, you're standing there and going, that's all very well. Thank you very much. All I needed you to tell me was the dog has been sick. Because I have a drug for sick, but I don't have anything else. And as I got into being a vet, I realized, hang on a minute, there must be something about 5 o'clock, green, cold water, thirst. Where does that fit? Where does all that information that everybody has fit? Because it must have a purpose, must have a use. And homeopathy completely and utterly answered that. Because it's those things that are the most important things in homeopathy.
So it's like the signs that your dog is giving you or that a person is giving you that are happening at specific times, and it's giving you like some cues basically.
Yeah, there are remedies out there that are specifically for 5 o'clock in the afternoon, green, thirst, cold water afterwards. So I've got so many more tools in my toolbox with homeopathy for treating individuals than I've ever had with conventional medicine. Because there are homeopathic remedies for symptoms sets that there's nothing in my armory in conventional medicine for those things. So suddenly the world of specifics, the world of what we call in homeopathy modalities, these things that define one animal versus another. So instead of there being me looking at 5,000 remedies for being sick, sorry to talk about sick, I've got 5,000 different remedies, and I can hone down on those 5,000 remedies to get into the specific way that an animal is being sick. So it's a completely different way of using all the information that owners come and tell you every single day in the consult room. But conventional vets will stand there and listen to it, but most of it goes straight over the top because it's of no use to them.
And so there is that one solution. That's what you get. Go home, see you later, and then you come back. And I get that all the time. My dog is sick. I have a doggy daycare boarding business. I see it all the time with owners. Oh, but they don't know what's wrong. Oh, they gave him anti-sickness injections, and then they sent him home. And I was like, what do you mean? It's like, they don't know really. Because it is hard. It's not like that simple to diagnose it. It could be they ate something. It could be there is something going on inside the body. But it's not that easy to diagnose it.
And diagnosis, you use that word diagnose, and that's really important because I don't not diagnose in the same way. So I use all my veterinary skills because I diagnose diseases in the same way as a conventional vet always does. I use blood tests or x-rays or whatever's needed at the time. So diagnosis is still really important. But I have another whole language that I can use to help diagnose, actually.
Yeah, and that's powerful.
Super powerful.
In your opinion, how does that kind of clash with the normal vets that are out there? Right? Because obviously there are not that many people like you in the world, right? And I would say 95% of people go to a normal vet. And normal vets are just not trained to that level. Lots of normal vets don't believe in it. But I say don't believe in it. The main pushback that people get is there is not enough evidence.
Yeah, there's a huge, I mean, it's changed over the years. And I think partly for me, it's because the vets in my local region know me and they know the quality of the work that I produce. And they also know that I do diagnose. I do understand disease in a conventional way. Yeah. So it's not that I'm just going, oh, I'm a homeopath and I'm just going to pull a remedy out of the sky. Yeah. I'm using all the skills that I was given and taught as a conventional vet, but I'm using extra skills, more skills. Skill sets have grown into a different way. Yeah. So I have a specialty, just like somebody might decide they want to study skin disease or they want to study kidneys and become the specialist in that. Added those skill sets of different modalities, different ways of understanding disease. And a lot of vets now, I have to say, are much better than they were, say, even 12 years ago, 15 years ago, when it really hit the buffers. And they do recognise that actually we can get some very good results.
I had it firsthand with Rusty. He has a really slight heart murmur. And I did my own research because I was like, I don't care whether it's grade 1. What can I do to try and prevent as much as possible? So I found COQ10 called supplements, and his cardiologist was super reluctant. No, there are not enough studies. There is one study, it's not that many dogs. But I was going back and forth all the time. Eventually, we got to the point where we should try it. What are the negative effects? Okay, we might have a bit of diarrhea, we might be sick. But if you don't see these signs, this has been studied for hundreds of years and it works for people. So why can't we just do the same for our dogs? I know there are not that many studies in dogs because it's more expensive to get studies for dogs. You need to use dogs. So there are a lot of different things. So I completely agree with you. But I just feel like it's so powerful to just have your knowledge. And I think, yes, hopefully we will get to that level in the future with vets.
I hope so too. And I think the internet makes things very different. Dangerous tool, because everybody piles in with all sorts of bits of information and there's huge amounts of junk information on the internet. But equally that you can drill down into evidence-based medicine and you can drill down as a member of the public into clinical papers if you're able to read them. And AI is going to change all of that. AI is already changing all of that because AI can be used at amazing levels to look through evidence-based medicine, clinical research papers for things like supplements and clashes of things and what can I do for this. And a lot of it is now attainable and reachable for most people but learning how to apply it is hard. Applying it safely is hard.
Exactly. And that's why you need to work with an expert anyway to be able to do it successfully. So you can get, and this is the thing, is empowering dog owners to understand how to do these things.
Yes.
Understand what to look out for, and then work with an expert. They can try. I really like your approach, because at the beginning of the call, you said I'm a normal vet, but I got myself these qualifications, and now it's like really powerful, because it's like I can do both things. I can see both sides now, and I'm not against one or the other, but I can see how they can work together to help the dogs live happier, longer, and healthy life.
Yes. All I want is a healthy dog. The end of it is, and a happy dog, and a dog that maximizes its lifespan that it should be living. Because we have a lot of dogs that we can get them over certain things for a short time, but they pass away at 7 and 8 and 9 years old.
Yeah.
So what I love is my 15-year-olds coming in, and my 16-year-olds coming in, and the real golden oldies that I've known all their lives, and we've got them through all sorts of diseases, but we've got them into a proper old age, and a quality one.
Yeah, I love that. And that ties us really nicely with the presentation that you did at the Natural Dog Expo. So the reason why I got really I need to talk to her is because you shared a very interesting story of a dog called George. Can you tell us a little bit about George, please?
Yeah, but George is fictitious, but George is an example I just use and put together that might be fictitious, but I see a George every day of the week. I literally see a George every day of the week. And it breaks my heart when I also see George and George's owners who've tried their very best throughout their lives to look after George, and really have done everything because they've been told to do it, and they've done it diligently, but they've walked that little dog George into an early death without knowing what they're doing. And it's not their fault either, because they've taken their dog to a vet, they've listened to good advice, but it's understanding about disease. So the story I gave was of, all of us who go out and we get our little puppy, and the little puppy that we adore, and it's all fluffy, and we get everything ready for it. We get our home ready for it. We research food, we do all those things. And then George comes into our lives as this gorgeous little thing. And so here is little George, and we've got the diet sorted out. We're not going to give kibble. We're going to do we've looked up, we're going to do some raw feeding. So we're doing good things. But then, of course, we vaccinate George. We get told we have to do that. So we get in there with those vaccines, and we get in there with the wormers, and we get in there with the very early flea treatments and these sorts of things. And then what happens to little George is a few weeks in, he ends up with a little bit of an ear infection, and he might have a little bit of loose stool. And then we quite rightly go off to the vet and say he's got this really sore ear, and now what am I going to do? So vet gives some drops, and so we put some ear drops in, it all goes away, and that's fine. And then time goes on, and then the ear comes back again. So we think, we better change the diet. It might be the diet. So we change the diet, and we fiddle about with that. But then actually George starts to get itchy generally. And then we go, oh my goodness, what's happening to George? I'm a really good owner here, and I don't want an itchy dog, and I know all about allergies, so I don't want that. So we go and see our vets, and so we get a little bit of medication, and it all damps down, and off we go. And then booster time comes, and then so George has a booster, and then George gets some more flea treatment, and George gets more bits and pieces and stuff given. Then the skin disease comes back, and it's a little bit worse. And then the diarrhea starts to get a little bit worse, and it gets a little bit more often. And then George ends up going out. He's running around, he's having a nice time, and he falls over and he hurts himself. He hurts his leg. And this story goes on, and George, make it as big or as little as we like. But really the story of George, and then George ends up, goes back to his vet, they do some x-rays, and actually what's happened is George has got some arthritis, and he's also, with his skin, he's getting so much worse that vet says, let's put him on a drug that will take away that itch. So he goes on a drug that takes away the itch, and I'm not going to say the name on air, but it's a very common drug these days for itch, and it's not steroids. And a couple of weeks later, George gets a lump on his skin. And so then what happens is that the vet says, oh gosh, we better take that off. We'll do a biopsy, and we'll take that lump off, and we'll sort that out. And then the more drugs go on, because the diarrhea's got a lot worse by now, and the arthritis is a lot worse by now. So he needs anti-inflammatories, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories for his arthritis. And so that little lump that was taken off, then a few weeks later, unfortunately, George is really poorly. And he goes in to the hospital and they do all sorts of scans and lots of x-rays and things. And really sadly, George has got a much worse cancer, but it's inside. And then George's, sadly, recommendation is that he's euthanized. Now, that's a long, rambly story.
You give me goosebumps, by the way. Just but you can't. If you love dogs, that is the reality. And goodness is AI, but like you said, that all the time.
I see these stories all the time. And every one of those things to the owner at the time, because George was, let's say he was 8 when he finally passed away with that awful malignancy that the vet said they couldn't do anything about. So there's that, but there's all those things where mum and dad, a carer of this little dog, took him in for what looked like an acute disease. He'd got an acute ear, he'd got acute itch, he'd got arthritis, he'd got diarrhea. But actually, all of those things are one thing. They are developing chronic disease over time. So all those little incidents that look like one-offs are not one-offs. They are a continuum of worsening disease. And all the drugs do is suppress the symptoms back, but do nothing to address the underlying problem that George actually has. And we're all born with predisposition, and we're all born with a tendency towards things. But each of those drugs that are given are also acute diseases in their own right. One of those drugs may have caused the first tumor. The drugs given for the worsening arthritis and the this and the that just deepened his chronic underlying disease until ultimately he ended up with cancer. And had all those little events been handled in a different way, not looked at as individual acute episodes, George might have lived a lot longer than 8. Trouble is with our dogs, when they are euthanized and put to sleep, we have grief. We then get over that eventually if we're lucky enough. And we go and buy another puppy, or we go and get another rescue dog, or what have you. And the industry is geared to, here's your new one. It's now we've lost it. Now we go and get another one. And it's very easy to forget that actually the quality of life of that first one might have been very different if we'd done things in a very different way.
And it's like, what did I learn from that first one that I can apply to my next one?
Yeah, exactly. And this is where the alternative medicines come in, the things like homeopathy comes in, because to be fair to conventionally trained vets, they've got 10-minute appointments, a lot of them, not all of them, but unless you go to specialists, you've got 10-minute appointments very often, a bit like the doctor. You go in with one disease. What have you got? What's wrong with your dog? Oh, it's got an ear problem. Okay, here's the drop. Boom. Not, okay, hang on a minute. Why has your dog got an ear problem? Where did that ear problem come? Oh, hang on a minute. It was 2 weeks after the vaccine. Right, that could be related. So it's the ability to be able to stop, think, relate back to, okay, what's just happened in George's life that might have triggered this disease? And that ear disease is the same as his skin disease. And that bowel diarrhea that he was getting was the same as the skin, because the bowel is just the inside skin. It's just deeper disease. So when we see things going from skin to gut, we know the disease has got deeper. And then when it goes into bone, hearts, livers, kidneys, it's got even deeper.
And it's sometimes irreversible as well, right?
Absolutely. If you get it soon enough, it is reversible. It is reversible. So one of the things I teach a lot of my clients to do is to timeline. Your vet doesn't have the time to properly do it. They have watches of your notes on a computer file system. If they're lucky, they'll look at the last time you came in, and there should be a sort of synopsis of what's going on with your dog on the screen for the vet. But it's really hard for them to remember that 3 years ago, George had this and this, and that 4 years ago, he had this and this. So if you keep a timeline and you literally draw a line, which is birth and now, in between every event that happens to your dog, you plot it on the line.
Yeah.
So above the line, you put all the things that happened. I vaccinated, I gave flea treatment, he fell off a cliff, he had diarrhea. And then under the line, you put the diseases he got and the treatment he got.
Yeah.
And you will see trends. Owners will start to see trends and they'll go, whoa, hang on a minute. Yeah. He's now getting diarrhea every month, not every year.
Yeah.
Now getting an ear infection within 2 weeks of being boosted. Or actually his behavior changed after I started giving him that flea treatment. It's being able to see things visually. Yeah. I'm a very visual person, so I like visuals. People need to be able to stand back And you can take that to your
To the
vet
vet.
and say, this is the story of my dog. Does this mean anything to you? Because I'm noticing that things are actually getting worse and worse. We're getting more things involved in my dog. And the one thing we need to do is intervene before cancers and autoimmune disease hits.
Yeah.
It's so important. You can't prevent all of it,
No.
because some animals have a predisposition to cancer.
Yeah. It's genetic sometimes.
But here's a biggie but. 95% of cancers are environmental. They're not all about genetics. They're about the stuff you put in your food, the chemicals you put on your skin, the glyphosate that your food is sprayed in the fields. They're about environmental toxicity and damage to your DNA. And our dogs, we can prevent a huge amount of it.
Yeah. What would be your recommendation around that? If you were to talk to an owner generally, like what are the few things that we should be doing better from an environment perspective to try and prevent chronic illnesses as much as we can?
Yeah, it's a biggie. It's a huge one, because we are in an environmentally corrupted soup at the moment.
Same for us humans, isn't it?
100%. I do treat humans as well with a different qualification, I hasten to add, not as a vet, but I treat humans as well, and it's 100% the same in humans.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are in a very toxic world, So the first thing is clean up your house, clean up their diet, and really think carefully about minimalizing chemicals. Absolutely minimalize chemicals on them, in them. And by chemicals, I don't only mean things like flea treatments and tick treatments and all of those. It's things in your household, the lovely scented candles you plug in, smelly things, your fabric conditioners, your lawn dressing, so your lawn has no weeds on it, the Roundup you spray in your flower bed that your dog walks on and breathes in, your smoking. There's all these things are toxicities for the dog and potential carcinogens. And they're not simple to eradicate, but they're simple to make small changes easily, that's
It doesn't take much. It's just like a few things at the time, clean it all up. And dogs are like on the ground constantly as well. So that's
their problem.
Possibly worse than for us, isn't it?
It is, because heavy things go to the floor. Heavy odors go to the floor. And so your dog's breathing a different air to you when you're stood up, and they're walking on stuff and they're cleaning themselves. So another simple thing you can do is, if you're living in the countryside and it's spraying time, we're coming up now to harvest. Harvest is where, with grains, if they're harvesting grains, farmers will be spraying glyphosate everywhere, because they kill off broadleaf weeds so that there's none of those in when they harvest the grain. So you'll see sprayers in the next few months going out and spraying toxic chemicals all over the fields. Now, I lost a dog to glyphosate.
Wow.
My own flipping dog I lost to glyphosate. He had other problems, but he was poisoned because we didn't know the farmer behind us had sprayed on the day he carried a ball up the field edge. And so he was effectively drinking glyphosate.
Yeah.
It was just a nightmare. So I know everything there is to know about glyphosate and how.
So sad, isn't it? Because you just don't think about it. I have a walk just behind my house, and there are huge fields full of grains, and it's just, I didn't even think about that. And I walk my dog there every evening. So it proves the point. It's so hard to remember it all.
Your radar on all the time, and I'm normally pretty flipping sharp, and I got this completely wrong on that day. We just went out on a lunch break, and I hadn't seen that they'd been there, and because the grass, it was all still green. It was a cattle field with grass, so I wasn't expecting them to do anything, but they were killing it off because they were going to. Anyway, that's a long story short. But simple things like avoiding. If the sprayers are out with the tractors, then glyphosate is being fresh sprayed on crops. So don't walk your dogs on field edges on those days. And if you have to, wash them when you get home. Just water, not with anything that's emollient, factants or anything like that. Detergent is the word I was looking for. Just water. Just wash them off. That also washes pollens off as well, allergic animals.
Contribute to allergies, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're useful to do anyway with a sponge, just sponge them down to get the pollens off. It's being super alert to what is around you. And please, if there's one thing don't use Roundup in your garden. Don't use things on your lawn.
Yeah.
You don't need to have a pristine green lawn with no daisies, because might just be that having a daisy saves your dog's life.
Yes, literally, absolutely. And especially if you have a dog, right? If you don't have a dog, you have your own countryside house, fine.
To you.
You have to think about that.
Yeah, up to you. And also be careful around if you're walking around industrial estates or anything like that. One of the industrial estates where I had one of my practices, they were spraying paraquat outside for weed killers. Paraquat is horrific stuff.
Yeah.
And you see them going around and I went and said, "What are you spraying?" And he said, "Oh, I don't know. And he's walking around breathing this stuff in.
Yeah.
And so I said, "Will you show me what you're spraying? I need to go to your van and I want to see what you're spraying." And it was paraquat.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So even you have to have your radar on the whole time.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, so that's an amazing advice. So that's from an environmental perspective, clean the environment as much as you can and just be aware of everything around you as much as possible. And then diet-wise, you said a good diet. What in your experience is a good diet?
Same thing as it is for us. The least processed, the best you can afford, because we have to be practical here. Not everybody can afford to give their dogs the best, because we're talking the best is extremely expensive.
Yes.
Because the super best would be as we would have for ourselves if we could afford it for ourselves, and most of us can't.
Yes.
So is things like grass-fed beef and that are organic. We're talking about super expensive meat, which is, if you've got a German Shepherd or you've got a Great Dane, that dog's going to eat more than you.
1,000,000%. I have a 10-kilo dog and his raw food is organic. And all my clients I'm talking with who are raw feeders as well, they're like, he's 40 kilos. That would cost me like £400 a month.
I used to have German Shepherds. I had German Shepherds for most of my adult life, male German Shepherds. And the bill to feed my dogs was way more than I ever spent on me. Way more.
Yes. And I feel it. 10-kilo dog, right? So imagine.
The best you can afford. And I am an advocate of raw food feeding, 100%. It's got to be good. It's got to be as balanced as you can get it. It doesn't have to be balanced every meal. It's balanced over a fortnight kind of rotation. But you've got to be careful with the formulation, because the food market has been just huge now. We were one of the first practices in Britain to have raw food in our practice. That's all we sold. Was we threw out all the kibble. We had no kibble whatsoever in our practice. And I was one of the first to put freezers in, and we had raw food. But now there's about 70, 80 different manufacturers of raw food, but they vary.
Yes.
They vary. So you have to be super careful what you're doing. You have to do your research. Look at there's some fabulous resources on the internet now. The allaboutdogfood.co.uk, wonderful resource, because you can look at nutritional analysis.
Yes.
You can look at ingredient lists of what's in foods, because there's so much junk in food and there's so much deception in labeling.
Yeah.
Where things are split down so that it hides ingredients.
Yeah.
Like meat, poultry, then you might have chicken meat. You might have chicken byproducts. You might have, or you have maize, and then you have corn. Then you have corn syrup, which is all corn.
Can I ask you a question about that? As I'm talking to many experts, and obviously everyone has got different views. You have the more integrative, more conventional experts. And about that, what I hear all the time is two things, right? The first one is you shouldn't focus on ingredients, you should focus on nutrients. Nutrients is more important than ingredients. And these are mainly experts that are like more fan of kibble, because they're like, I'm sorry, but Royal Canin has been developing these for the last 40 years. There is science behind the fact that it's nutritious. You can't just, all these fresh food companies, this raw food, yes, it might have really good ingredients by the look of it, but actually no one wants to share a nutritional breakdown or like a full nutritional analysis and things like that. And that, from what I hear after talking to all of these people, that's what it seems to be their problem, is we can't trust fresh food because there is not as much research and science behind it. What is your view on that?
It's a hugely emerging field. It really is, because you're absolutely right about the big players in the kibble market. They will tell you it's about nutrient value, and then in order to get things, they might even be feeding minced up feathers and horrific things that I would not feed to my dog. But nutritionally, if you break it down with analysis, it's got some protein, it's got some vitamins and minerals, particularly minerals, not many vitamins, but they can show that there's nutritional value in waste products. A lot of these foods are really poor value ingredients that have a nutritional value.
Yeah.
And there's an argument to be said in this, of course, in this era, where we are really up against it on the planet. There's a lot of people who say our pets should be eating the products that we can't eat. Yeah. And if they've got nutritional value, then that's it. That's all you should be worried about. However, you've also got to be thinking about what happened to those animals before they ended up in a food. And if the poorer the ingredients, the more drugs those animals will have had, the worse feeding they will have had. I've drifted off a little bit, but
makes sense, because it's the thing about chicken meal. Like I see that all the time everywhere. More non-holistic experts, they are like, chicken meal is really nutritionally is really good. Corn, maize, grains are good. And there is this kind of this argument, right, that is going, okay, I hear it, but then I hear your side as well, which makes sense, right? And that's always been my understanding since Rusty was a puppy. And so I'm like, it's really hard, isn't it? Because as a dog owner, you just like, it's this and that. And you're just like, what do I do? It's just, do I trust a Royal Canin where there is science and things like that, but it's ultra processed? Or do I go the more realistic way where there is a bit less research? But
research does need to be there for raw food. And there are some companies that I don't agree with, that literally it's meat and bone, it's minced up, it's put in a packet with very pretty marketing, and there is no real nutritional, and no company is allowed to do no nutritional breakdown. They do have to do minimal, but the evidence base is growing for raw food feeding. There's a lot of controversy around bacterial build-up and all of these things, and in America they're pasteurizing it all. So there's controversy around raw food feeding, because raw food feeding done badly is as bad, if not worse, as kibble done badly. But there are recalls on bacterial levels in kibble, just as much, if not more, than there are in recalls on. So the evidence is coming, and I'm all for the evidence, but equating raw food to a kibble is that they're like apples and oranges. They're really hard to actually do a one against one comparison, because you've got two completely different products, and how the body digests it and breaks them down is completely different. So what a stomach will do with bone and raw meat is that it's going to have different acid levels, it's going to have different contractility rates, it's going to behave, the whole dog's physiology behaves in a different way with a raw meal as it will with a processed meal. And we will often have dogs who, I'm back to being sick again, I've seen dogs being sick the next day, bringing up a meal of kibble that is exactly as it was the day it ate it. Nothing's happened to it.
Yes, it's so true, isn't it? It's so interesting. And I think it just, in a way, I'm like, because I feed Rusty half raw and half fresh. And obviously it's like, you do have the option, right? You're very like skeptical about raw and the contamination, the bacteria. You can still go fresh, it's still better. Well, at least in my personal opinion, again, I'm building this platform to just make sure people get both of the opinions, which is fine. But it's just, yes, in my view, surely it's good for us. Why wouldn't it be good for them too? And I think it's also, I just want more research in it, because I feel like the biggest pushback you get is it's not as digestible as kibble. Like when my dog has a poo on kibble, the poo looks okay, but then when they ate fresh food, I can see the pieces of veggies coming out and things like that. And so it's okay. Then you ask these companies, have you done any digestibility trials and things like that? And they haven't, because they're really expensive to do. And I just think if we just had a little bit, now Royal Canin just developed their own fresh line. It's starting to get out there. And this is when I saw that, I was like, that's amazing in a way, because hopefully we will start seeing some.
They're doing that because they're seeing how many people are feeding it.
Yeah.
That's about selling products.
Yeah.
It's a very cynical market out there.
Yeah.
And there is a huge, big jump between raw and cooked is bone. The difference is bone.
Yes.
And I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's true. There's other differences, of course. When you change digestibility the minute you start to cook. But the big thing is you can't have bone in a cooked diet. And bone is an amazing thing, and a non-load bearing bone. So that's not legs of cows, or it's the non-weight bearing. So it's things like chicken necks and ribs and those sorts of things, like lamb rib and chicken neck and those kinds of things ground up with the diet that produce much more than calcium and phosphorus. And there's so much usefulness in bone. I cannot overemphasize how important it is.
Yeah.
And all of the collagen and the connective tissue that comes with it.
Yes.
The nutritive value of bone is so underestimated.
Yes, as long as it's broken down in a way, because again, the argument is my dog can choke on it and things like that.
Yes.
Fine, true. But it's like you said, if it's minced, yeah, exactly. Then.
And again, it's not for everybody. It's not for every dog. The minute you compromise the dog's ability to digest food,
yes,
then raw is probably not the right thing for it to have. For example, there's a lot of dogs now on antacids like omeprazole. So the minute you stop the acid in the stomach, that dog can't digest.
Yeah.
So they can't have raw.
No. Yeah.
The dog has had its microbiome and its gut destroyed by endless courses of antibiotic probably is going to have trouble digesting raw properly.
Yes.
So they are better on something like a cooked diet or a kibble, or a freeze dried or something like that. So there is nothing on this earth that is black and white. Every dog is individual. And I have a dog now, a Norfolk Terrier, who will not eat raw. She won't eat it. It doesn't matter what I do. And I've worked with raw food companies for 20 years, and she will not eat it. She'll eat pink meat.
I had to do the same with Rusty. So like he went off his raw food, and now I'm doing half and half. So morning when he's less hungry, I give him gently cooked, and in the evening I give him raw, and he seems okay with it, and his food is good, and his energy is good. I tell you what, my personal experience on raw is 2 years, Rusty Cavaliers, they tend to have lots of health issues, right? Ear infections, eye infection. The moment he started his raw diet 2.5 years ago, that's when everything disappeared. We had nightmares. We were maxing out on our insurance all the time because we could not understand why every month he had an eye infection or he had an ear infection. And the moment we started with this amazing food company, I'm not going to name it, but everything stopped. And then in January, he went off it. I think he was sick once, he ate something and he completely went off it. All the problems came back. I was like, okay, let's go gently cooked. Because I was like, that's for me the best alternative out there. Everything came back. So we had to go to the vet 4 or 5 times in the last 6 months. And it just shows, right? Every dog is different. But if they don't eat it, like you have to try and find the ways to just get the best alternative out there too.
Yeah, the best alternative and food possible.
Yes.
Always asking the question of what did that animal that's in the food eat itself?
Yes.
Because the more farmed and commercial a food is, it will have been full of antibiotics or other chemicals. It's like we all go and eat fish, and the sea is full of chemicals and heavy metal. Farmed fish is just a nightmare. So we have to ask the question about the foods in the food feeding the. There's a problem with the amount of work that some of the companies are putting into actual analysis of these diets. Sometimes it's better to rotate between manufacturers so that if a manufacturer's got something not quite right, they're supposed to adhere to the FEDIAF guidelines. So the pet food industry has guidelines, but the guidelines fall apart a little bit when it comes to wet food because those guidelines were initially drawn up for dry food.
Yes.
Whereas they don't take good account of wet food changes in how the dog digests it. So the guidelines are a little bit super guideliney.
Yes.
So what can happen is that one company will, for example, use salmon oil and nothing but salmon oil for their oils, for their essential fatty acids. And another company might use something completely different. They might use hemp oils and something else. And another company might do something else. So if one of those companies has got it a little bit wrong, if you feed that and that alone over time, and you won't see it initially, over time, your dog's coat and condition and joints and everything can start to go off. So you're better to choose 2 or 3 different good quality manufacturers and rotate so that you make up for a company's slight errors.
Yes. Yeah. That makes sense, because you just cannot be there. Like, you don't know what's happening in the background. You will get given some information, but not everything that is going behind the scenes to be able to, like, yes, I've done my research, I really trust this company, but still, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
And it's not a case of, yes, from that company, I'll buy the beef, the chicken, the duck. That's not what I mean. It's different companies altogether.
Yes.
So that you've got completely different background profiles that go in, because they all add vitamins and minerals and essential fatty acids to hit the guidelines. But how they do that differs company to company. And there will be slight differences that can make a big difference 6 months down the line to your dog. So it's
such a great advice. Yeah, thank you for that. And then I know we're almost out of time, so I'm just gonna ask a couple of other questions. If I'm an owner and I feel like a little bit stuck between like a conventional and holistic care for my dog, what would your advice be there? So I'm an owner, I go to the vet, I hear this, and then I look online and I follow some other experts and they're telling me that. How do I manage that as an owner?
I'm not going to lie, it's incredibly tricky because there aren't enough well-trained holistic vets out there. And there's a lot of wah-wah that's out there. I had a dog, because a lot of the forums that I'm seeing online, like the Facebook forums and things, some of them are great, but some of them, it's all down to the administrator of the forum. And some of the forums, they have a view, and the view gets smaller and smaller, and if you don't follow the view, you get thrown out the group. So you've got to be so careful about what you listen to. So it's looking at good sources with broad advice. Some of the bigger magazines like Dogs Naturally, those that have regular features, have a read of those. Try and find your top sites that give quality information. It's not easy. It's not easy, but you have to use your vet for your diagnostics. You have to use your vet for your diagnostics, 100%. But you don't always have to follow the drug advice at the end of it. You need your hand holding a little bit from somebody who does understand how to integrate.
Yes, that's it. And that's such a good point, isn't it? It's like having like your normal vet that can look after the kind of like emergencies and things that are going wrong, and then they just work with an expert or follow another expert that is more like holistic, has an holistic approach as to prevent most of it from happening. Because at the end of the day, if you can prevent as much as possible, surely, hopefully, you won't end up having as many chronic illnesses.
100%, you won't. And you do this, and then these days we have to do exactly the same with our own health.
I agree.
We have to go to the doctor to get the tests done.
Yeah.
Do we necessarily take the pills? No, we don't. We have to also do our research as to what are the long-term consequences if I do this.
Yes, I completely agree. That's amazing. Thank you so much. And one last question is, if someone loved this episode so much, they would love to talk to you and get in touch with you, where can they find you? How can they contact you?
Probably the easiest way is through Substack. I do a Substack every 2 weeks.
Okay.
So Substack's a good way to come in and drop me just chit-chat email type stuff.
Yes.
Or they can email me at the practice. But I get consumed in emails.
I can imagine.
But the Substack's a great point of contact for me. Every 2 weeks, I put out some information on whatever topic it is that takes my fancy. And that's a good way because you can just drop things into that chat at the bottom of that.
Amazing. And then you can take it from there. Amazing. So thank you so much. Absolutely. I knew I was going to love it, but I really loved it. Like, it was quite emotional. It's like talking about George and sharing that. People are going to absolutely love that, and I think a lot of people will resonate with it. So thank you so much for jumping on.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for what you do. Thanks for all that you do.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you on the next episode.
Thank you for watching. If you found this episode helpful, follow us on Instagram, and if you want first access to DAFY, join our waitlist now. The links are in the show notes.